other advertisers.
This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to the Three Eyes Podcast with your host, Megan Sweet, applying intellect, insight, and intuition to promote personal and school-wide transformation. We'll be talking about education, mindfulness, and transformations large and small. We'll be talking to people who are applying their intellect, their insight, and their intuition to promote either their personal or school-wide transformations. While this podcast is specifically for educators, anyone can get some information out of this. To learn more about us and to access our blogs, free downloads, and our calendar of events, please come over to our website at www.your3eyes.com. That's spelled Y-O-U-R, the number 3, EYES.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Three Eyes podcast today. We are midway through a series on building the mind-body connection, and it connects closely to themes in my book and in the work that we talk about here on the show, which is really around learning how to use three different eyes rather than one to understand our lives, or three lenses, as I like to call them. The first one is intellect, and we talk about that one a lot. That's about using our head brains, which we're all very good at using, and we tend to actually favor too much. And I talk a lot about on this podcast, but also in my book, around using two additional lenses to help us to see ourselves in our world with more clarity. The second is insight. That's a lot to do with beliefs, lessons learned, and also what we can learn from our responses to things. We'll be talking a lot about that today with our guest, as well as our third eye, intuition, which is learning how to tap into knowledge that's not accessible through our head brains, but through deepening a connection with our bodies and with our spiritual selves, and how those play out. So when we learn how to use three eyes together, it provides what I like to call kind of three-dimensional seeing. So it helps us to see ourselves and our choices in much more clarity. Our guest today, Shara Ogin, will be helping us to talk about that. She's going to give us a lot of really great information about beliefs and about connecting with our bodies and about spirituality. And I'm really excited to have Shara here. Shara began her professional career in 1994, working in the medical field as an occupational therapist and ergonomist. That's kind of a hard word for me. Yet over the decades, her focus has veered towards the mind-body connection and self-actualization. Shara entered into clairvoyant studies in 2011 with the goal of healing her own inner wounding and pain and the self-doubt and self-sabotaging beliefs that plagued her. She discovered when her inner world wounds and beliefs started to heal, not only did she begin to manifest everything she wanted in life, but she developed the ability to see precisely what was standing in the way of other people having what they wanted to be in the areas of life, be it in areas like love, purpose, fulfillment, or financial abundance. The more she worked with the spirit world, the faster her abilities grew to remove blocks and set people on their way towards living the life of their dreams. And this path is synonymous with the path of the soul's truth and intention. Shara now works as a manifestation coach, Feldenkrais practitioner, and intuitive healer. Shara combines, her work combines numerous modalities such as NLP, ancestral DNA healing, past life reification healing, energy healing, coaching, trauma release, and somatic hands-on healing. The reason her work is so effective is because in order to really heal a long-term issue, it must be addressed from numerous angles at the subconscious and subcortical level, as well as at the conscious level. That means things that were passed on through our family lineage, pre-incarnational contracts and karma, and childhood wounding. All these factors are contributing to the you who you are today. The work she now does is an excellent adjunct to the over 25 years of work she did working with people's pain and physical body issues. Shara, I'm so excited to have you here on the show. Thank you for joining us. That's an incredibly impressive resume you have there. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that path you made between being an occupational therapist and the work you do now.
Yeah. Okay.
So, okay, my occupational therapy story is I was mainly working with people over the past, my last 10 years of doing OT. It was all outpatient, hand therapy, carpal tunnel, shoulder pain, neurological pain, and people with neurological issues. And I love the work. I still love working in that capacity. However, when I switched over to doing more psychic and intuitive coaching, what I started to realize is that there were specific diagnoses that were very consistent. Certain limiting beliefs and energetic stack points that were pretty consistent with all of the diagnoses I was treating. I started to make a list of all the diagnoses and the belief patterns, and pretty soon I started to see that they were pretty much it became easier and easier to treat people on the psychological and the psychic level, seeing these patterns that they have. I mean, there's of course a little bit of variance for each person. Each person has a different, I know we're talking about beliefs today. And so, there's maybe 6 core limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough, I'm on the outside, but there's different flavors of each one. So the individual nuances of each belief or each energetic block is what I started to tune into more and more. Like I'll just give you, for instance, tennis elbow. There's a very easy protocol, occupational therapy wise. You want a tennis elbow strap and avoid working so far away from the body. Certain things that you do to avoid that. But at an energetic level, tennis elbow is also get away from me. Like every person I did a reading on, it was get away from me. And then I started to see how that and by the way, when people hear this information, they may deny it, or it may not make sense at first. But then if depending on where they are as far as interpersonal work, they eventually might usually see how this really pertains to them and the way that they're blocking, maybe what they're blocking receiving. A lot of people with tennis elbow just have a hard time receiving in general. And then get away from me, as in like there's people that take their energy. And so they have a really good reason to push away. For all of our limiting beliefs, we have a really good reason for believing them. That, they all started from when we were younger. And so there's nothing wrong with that. We don't want to have a blaming him or me or anybody. It's just seeing, first of all, the world in law of attraction perspective, that there's something I'm putting out that is attracting this back to me, and then also understanding that everything happens for a reason. Now, this took me, I definitely did not get this in my first 40 years of life, so this is not something I expect, if this is the first time you've heard this, to believe that right off. But what I do want to encourage is people who have physical ailments to rather than this happened to me, or taking the victim perspective, to understand that there really is a root cause that is different than what the doctors are telling you. That will really, once you understand it and see it, it will really help you on your trajectory, on your evolution, on your life path. And then there's one other really quick point I want to make here that's super important. And that is that if we have unexpressed desires or limiting beliefs or things that are really bringing us down into the tar pits, and they're not healed, they will most likely eventually result in some sort of somatic response, which could or could not result in pain or diagnosis or injury down the road. So just because you don't have an actual, you're pushing people away and you don't have tennis elbow, that doesn't mean you're not going to get tennis elbow. It could mean that there's other, you're let's just say you're prone to being the receptor for that diagnosis.
Wow, that's really interesting. There's so many things that I want to ask you about what you just shared there. But the first thing that I'm really connecting with is actually something from my own body as well. So I did a martial art for a very long time, and I had a lot of injuries from that. And one of the main ones that I had was in my back and my lower back. It's still evident if I get up after a while. I kind of walk crooked for a little bit. But a few years back, it got so bad that I couldn't sit down anymore. And that's a problem in general, but especially for me, I spend most of my time in a desk job. And so I was finding that at my desk, I could sit down for maybe a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. And then I would just start, like, it just became really untenable to stay seated much longer. The pinching started happening. So I'd have to stand up and stretch. I eventually went to a doctor, and they basically give you something akin to a cortisol shot in your lower back, and it's a pretty intensive procedure. They have to use all these stabilizers, and you have to be driven home, and it doesn't last for very long, but it lasts for a little while. And so I did that, and the pain came back after that, procedure went away. So I actually did go to somebody who did energy healing, which haven't talked much about it. So people listening to the show are going to hear about it now for the first time, but it was a little bit for me of like, well, I've tried everything else. I do yoga. I've seen people, I've had the medical procedure. It hasn't lasted. Let me give this a shot. And so I work with a woman, and I don't know how you do your work. So it'd be great to hear how this approach works with you, but I work with a woman from England, and we would get on the phone, and she would tap into my body and tell me what she was noticing from my body, just because energy is energy, right? So she didn't need to be in front of me, which was like the first big leap I had to make. I didn't actually have to physically be present with her. And she would tap into my body. And a lot of what she was doing was clearing old ancestral patterns. So she'd go in and she'd be like, I see that 5 generations back, there was this deep wounding around having your voice, or all these different things would show up, right? And she would heal them systematically one by one. And we met over the course of, 3 months or something like that. And truly, I started out like, okay, we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'll go there for a lot of spiritual things, but I'm like, this feels pretty out there, but I'm desperate. And by the end of those 3 months, she healed my lower back, and it's now been, 3 or 4 years, and none of those problems that were there existed. So I'm a big believer. That's a long ramp up for me saying that I'm a big believer. But maybe you can talk a little bit more about, again, if you diagnose a limiting belief, how do you get to that limiting belief? And then what's your next step with a client?
Okay, there's so much I want to say right now.
Okay, all right. Start there, and then we'll keep going.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that question in a second. The first thing I want to say is anything I say on this call is not a substitute for medical help.
Right.
I mean, I actually come from a family of doctors. My hardest client ever is my family, of course, doctors. But anyways, okay, where to even begin? So first of all, low back pain is an epidemic right now, right? Probably 50% of the working population right now has some sort of low back pain, even if it's just once in a while. And it's interesting. I was just thinking this as you're speaking, that diagnoses come generationally. So low back pain is carrying the weight of the world. So there is something about this generation being like the opportunist generation and feeling like we need to take on so much responsibility, like the level of like you're a very good example of someone who just has so much on your back, like not only the 20 million things that you do, but even if you were only doing one thing, you would be that person that more responsibility would just like fall on your back, and you've learned through techniques how to manage it, but you still have like the prodromes or the precursors to actually having back pain in the future.
Right.
So the next thing I want to say about pain is, in order to really heal pain, you must get to the root of the pain to heal it. So a lot of, therapists or, physical therapy will give you a stretch to heal it, or a lot of psychologists, they'll give you a technique that heals it for now. Actually, I'm not even going to name what I'm thinking, but anyways, you have to get to the deep work. So with any long-term diagnoses, there is a root belief, and there is what I call pictures. And the pictures could be the ancestral stuff or the pre-incarnation stuff, or it could be your childhood. Wherever the picture stems from, the picture must be healed and resolved. And I do that through a whole bunch of techniques. I won't confuse you by explaining them right now. But also I work as a Feldenkrais practitioner, which is a somatic hands-on practitioner. I don't have to. So, about half my clients are long distance and half of them are local. And so, but sometimes I work with people just for physical ailments. And when I put my hand on them, I teach their body how to move in a way before they started developing all these contraction patterns. So it's really interesting that just when you unravel their pattern of contraction, like for you, I would maybe just support with my hands very gently under the muscles of your paraspinals, to allow those, which are the muscles on either side of your spine, to allow those muscles just to relax and to release. With that comes more breath. And with that comes more freedom of movement. Like, for instance, if you reach your arm forward, then your scapula could glide, your ribs have permission to move, and then your pelvis moves, and that connects all the way into your feet. People with low back pain move like they're wearing a straitjacket. And so there's not that freedom of movement in their joints and in their bones and then in their muscles. This is essential for avoiding pain, which is why I will never stop doing the somatic work that I do. So oftentimes I combine modalities, but and they overlap too. So when you heal somebody on the physical level, like what I just described through the Feldenkrais somatic work, it helps them emotionally too. You know, when you have more breath, when you have more freedom to turn your body and to look up and to, you know, rotate your neck without pain, then it's like, yeah, I have more ability to receive, or there's more permission to be me, for instance. And then vice versa. When I work with people emotionally, like doing energetic healing to clear the blocks, or coaching to help them to remove their limiting beliefs, their physiology always changes. So it's really, really super cool. Now, to your question, do you want to repeat your question about beliefs?
Well, I mean, I think I'm off to I'm so excited about all the things that you're talking about. I feel like we could talk for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, my question was, how might you start to go about diagnosing someone? So someone shows up to you, and let's say it's me, and I've got this incredibly painful lower back. What's your process? So how do you start to enter into that conversation?
So it's different for everybody. You know, sometimes people come to me, and because I'm very mainstream, you know, I'm not like a hippy dippy kind of person. So people come to me just for physical ailment, and they don't want any of the psychic. So I'll just put my hands on them. Other times people come to me for more of the psychosocial, all the other areas. And well, first I want to know I want permission to, you know, look at I don't look at anybody's information before I actually have their actual permission. And then what I usually do is, actually there's no usually, I do all my sessions a little bit differently, but when I do psychic readings, I shut my eyes and maybe ask myself a question, like what is, like say they're coming to me for a diagnosis. I'll say, what is the root of this diagnosis? And then I'll see a picture. And then underneath the picture, it's sort of like layers. I'll see a limiting belief. Nobody could hide their limiting beliefs from me. Nobody. Really? Yeah. And oftentimes, like sometimes I do group healings, and sometimes I'll have them say their limiting belief. And oftentimes people know what their limiting beliefs are, but they may not have the core limiting belief. And so I'm like, yeah, that's good, but let's go one layer deeper and get this one. And usually, even though we have a conglomeration of limiting beliefs, I'm going to tell you what yours is in a moment.
Oh, good.
There's usually one that is the predominant one. You know what I mean? So yours is, I need to do it all. And
that's underneath that, I heard you busting me right away.
Yeah. I mean, underneath, and by the way, Megan and I only met one time briefly.
Right.
Like, we maybe talked like
no discussion really.
Yeah. So underneath that is, you know, add side like beliefs like that, like nobody else can handle this except for me. And then trust issues without trusting people, and I'm never going to get ahead. You know, don't worry. I'm sorry. I'm not going to get too deep.
No, you're okay. It's all true.
You're doing amazing. I think you're just like amazing butterfly woman in the world. You know, my main what I want to leave with you is you don't have to work so hard to get to where you want. And so for you, it looks like it's just a little bit of a mind shift. You know what I mean? And for everybody, if you just, because we live in a law of attraction universe. So if we just change our mind about these certain perspectives, then your life will change. Like literally, I was very a wounded bird growing up. I had no friends. I had no boyfriends. No men wanted to date me. You know, I was just consumed with, I mean, at the core of me, I was on the outside and I was isolated. And even though on the outside, it looked like, you know, I came from, you know, middle class. I looked like, you know, I had everything provided for me. I looked, you know, on the outside, I had a nice home, nice family that loved me. Everybody would have been like, oh, she had a nice childhood. No, on the inside, I was suffering so bad. I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't know how to express myself. I've done years of healing myself to get to where I am. And so we're all on our own process. And part of the reason I think why I suffered so much in my life is so that I could become more compassionate and see people. You know, a lot of my population I work with is actually it's 50% is the population we're talking about, and 50% is women towards the end of their childbearing years. For one thing, we all want so much more out of life than we're actually doing in our job, or maybe we're doing something and we're just not doing it successfully. And so we're frustrated and we want to do more. This is second chakra stuff. And then a lot of the ladies I work with want to find love and have a child in their 40s, and so these are all things I had to break through, having my first boyfriend at 40, all the shame and all the blocks. And, I had to heal all of that stuff so I could instantly see it in another person now. Yeah. And, I'm not, I always hated like working with someone that like, never had issues and, was always happy. I was not that person growing up. I freaking struggled. I had the life is effort belief. I'm always on the outside. I'm unlovable, like so consumed. I was almost like frozen and like I was unable to produce and provide. So it's, first of all, I want to be an inspiration to the listeners that you really could change your life around. It's all so very possible. Whatever you were provided with growing up, whatever conditions or circumstances and lack of love, you really could break through it to the other side. And then the other really strong point I want to make, and I'm just like talking from my heart right now, this is just point really wants to come across, is that whatever your hardships are and whatever your limiting beliefs are, when you get to the other side, that's some clue onto the trajectory of your life purpose, your soul's calling. I'll give you a for instance. So like my isolation, like curse was rejected from every single sorority when I was in college and all sorority school. Can you imagine the pain of like 4,000 people in school, all included in a group except for you? Oh my God, that was my 4-year college. It was painful to spend every Friday night in the library or Saturday in my room when everybody in the dorm was out. Like it was just, my entire life was like that. So now, many decades later, I could understand why these things happen to me. And it's because I'm still kind of like, I'm sort of like the Pied Piper now. The Pied Piper has a bit of a isolation karma around it, but it's not like I'm alone. I'm actually surrounded by people all around me. By me just changing those beliefs. And I'm like, okay, this is how it looks like. I'm never going to be like other people, I'm always going to be like the sore thumb that stands out when I walk into a room. But I've learned, first of all, how to run my energy so that I'm not like pushed away. People actually call me in. These are all tools that actually I'm actually going to put together. I just decided, I just got really clear. I'm going to do an intuitive coaching training program, so that people could use some of the same tools that I use. This is going to start in January in order to walk into the step of their highest potential and to break through whatever their stepping points are, whatever their limiting beliefs are, and to walk into their purpose. So don't poo-poo your limiting beliefs as shit. I'm stuck with this for my life. You're not stuck with it from your life. And there is some reason why you chose this body formation, the soul, the parents that provided this limiting belief for you.
Yeah, that's so much rich things in what you shared. And I just want to pull some out that really called to my heart. One is, I just really appreciate you sharing your own personal struggle and what you're learning from it. I think often we walk around projecting that image that we're together. And before you said that, I wouldn't have guessed any of the things you just shared. Having spent a lunch with you, I was like, oh, you walk in and you're just this beautiful, glowing woman. And I was like, oh, wow. Like I was intimidated by you. And generally I intimidate others because I can be commanding. And I was like, oh, she's got her stuff together. So it's just I just wanted number one, just from woman to woman, especially, I think we often do that to each other. We don't actually name what our challenges are. So I think that's really powerful and profound, but also the gifts that we can get when we start to get in there and start to learn about our beliefs. The next series that I'm going to be doing on this podcast is around embracing the shadow side, which is really what you're talking about there, of like we kind of push those parts of ourselves away, the painful stories, the things we're not so proud of because we think that they're bad. But there's so many lessons that can come from that experience of like, okay. And you're right, you busted me 100%. There's lots of trust things for me. There's lots of I have to do it myself. That's been actually a very big preoccupation of mine, probably my whole life, but recently it's been really weighing on me of not only do I have that belief, but then I've created situations where it gets reinforced, right? Which is the other part of that. So I keep finding roles, relationships, situations where so much of the burden does get on my shoulders. And there is this like, I have to carry stuff, energy that's around. So I know that, but I still find myself in it. So I think part of it also is like that. You're right. We can start to get a hold of our limiting beliefs, but then they can stay with us, or at least there's these patterns that we need to start paying attention to and shifting. And I was going to ask you, although it sounds like you're going to create a course on it too, but what are some ways to start? Like once, say we start to connect with a limiting belief, you said to me like, yeah, just shift it. And what happened in my body was instant panic.
Oh,
So
right.
I was like, oh shoot. No, not in you, but because it can feel so overwhelming to start to shift that. So I'm just wondering, in your personal life, how did you start to shift it? Or what are some recommendations you have for folks to start shifting that belief once they see it?
Okay. I'm going to answer that in a second. But the first thing I want to say is, we might have these limiting beliefs of a smidget of it through our life. And so one thing I've noticed is to choose your actions and your people who you're around wisely so that they complement you. Like you might be good, for instance, with people that totally like to do things for you, like the task drivers. You know what I mean? And then you also want to look at the pattern, like maybe you have a lot of task drivers, but they always do it wrong. They always fail for you. And so then you feel like you have to do it again. So there's that play. Like I've been looking at a lot, like who am I calling in to be my helpers? And how am I setting up for myself, either up for failure or success? So with knowing that we have these limiting beliefs, that I have, I've looked at, how to do events and things that makes it more successful. We have patterns that we need to okay. All right. So in order to heal a belief, you need to hit it from like 15 different techniques, all because I've seen psychologists for years and that never helped me to heal myself in any way, because it's always good to talk. So I don't want to poo-poo that, my husband and I actually go to talk therapy right now. And so it's very helpful. However, you must work with someone that could take you beyond what you could actually recall in your mind. So some of this is, okay, I have to tell you, I just this is another thing I do for the ancestral healing, is family constellations, which is the most amazing work ever on healing subconscious family issues that get stuck. It could be up to 7 generations in the past, or it could even be further, but they get stuck somewhere. And then when they're not healed and one person is pulled out, they call it the soul of the family, then it gets passed on and down generations, inherited. So first of all, we need to realize this isn't necessarily our stuff. Okay, so when I was saying I heal the beliefs from many different, sometimes as a psychic, I have techniques that I remove from my clients. Sometimes I have the clients do the work. It needs to be a combination and a teamwork effort. Now, the next thing I want to say about limiting beliefs is you must go to your inner child, your wounded child. All of our limiting beliefs start from the age of 2 to 5, our youngest years. This is, or even from the birth to 5, I should say. From the moment you were born, they actually say 6 weeks is when your cortical activity starts to speed up. 6 to 7 weeks of life is when you start to be like, oh, that's a ball. I mean, you're not thinking ball, but you're seeing the form and the shape and the spatial relationships and the people, and your emotions start to connect with your mom and everything. So you're limiting, like you might have a belief or a circumstance or a trigger. Anytime you have a trauma in your body that you go, oh, you have a major visceral reaction, that didn't just occur from that event. It occurred from the first 5 to 6 years of life. That's where you develop your cellular attraction point for whatever it is. Maybe mom left you all the time and you're like, I'm abandoned, I'm alone, I need to do it myself. So you must go back to, I actually have a limiting belief meditation that's free, and I'm happy to offer it to anybody. It just walks you back into your inner child so that you could just like see your inner child and go into that experience where you're having that belief and give love and support and help the inner child to meet your unmet needs. And then to bring this inner child into you, and then as you grow yourself back up to where you are right now, you could see this inner child inside of you. And that every time you tell yourself this limiting belief, I'm not good enough, you're actually saying that to your 4-year-old. And that's so mean and cruel to say that to your 4-year-old, because any baby, I have a 16-month-old, any baby, like that's like the worst thing you want to, like, every baby is pure, and there's no reason for them to feel that they're not good enough. And so what you want to give them is unconditional love. And so this is, you could even put a picture of yourself on the mirror, and like every time you think this thought, this limiting thought, then it's basically like you're putting that vibration and that energy into that soul. So you need to reverse it. You need to reverse it right away. But coming from the perspective of understanding the origin of it, then you could then start to understand that this doesn't make sense. There's nothing wrong with you. Even though you've been believing this your whole life, at the root of it, you had circumstances that led you to believe that. But this is not you. This is not your soul's truth at all. It never is.
Yeah, that's such a profound notion. I talk about this in my book a lot too, that we have these beliefs that start from this really early age, and they just keep showing up and affecting how we experience everything. And so we've been talking about some of these externalizations of that. And yeah, I talk about that a lot in how it shows up then in our beliefs about other people and other things. And actually someone a few years ago gave me that same prompting of like, once you start to catch that limiting belief, remember that there's a child there, and start to do that parenting yourself to yourself. So I will often, if I catch it before I start in on, because limiting beliefs often then also get attached to like really negative self-talk and really harmful self-talk. And so rather than doing the self-talk, I try and turn it into just compassion, and often will imagine myself hugging my younger self and just saying it's okay. Because you're right, a lot of my beliefs around, if we're going to use me as an example, around I have to do it all, or I have to carry the burden, that absolutely goes back to my childhood and the dynamics in my family. And that's not a criticism of my parents or my siblings or anything like that, but it was my role from about 6 months old to handle myself, that there wasn't space really for me to be taken care of. I had to be the one to take care of myself. So put myself to sleep. I even potty trained myself at your daughter's age.
Wow.
Like that was the pattern in my family at that time. And so I can still see it showing up all the time. Right. So that me having to carry it, and asking for help or learning to ask for help it's actually terrifying for me. So as much as I don't want it, limiting beliefs are so powerful, and they get their hooks in you. And
so when you go back to that little girl, the 6 month or even a little bit older, when you envision yourself at that age, you're able to have a lot more compassion, right, for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I always find it a little helpful to have a facilitator take you there than just to go. I mean, that's me personally, but after you've done it several times, then you train yourself. It's like a muscle to go back there instantly and find that place in your heart where you're criticizing the little girl and she just wants you with love. I mean, if anything, because of your circumstances as you described them, you need more love. You had so many unmet needs that, like I just feel so much compassion for you right now, even as I'm like looking at your little girl,
Yeah.
Love, more and more love.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And the compassion's such a big, thank you. I could feel it. That compassion is such a powerful part of it. And the multi-generational thing I think is fascinating. And like I said, it came up with this healing in my back, that it was these generations, a lot of them of women, and having these unmet needs or other traumas that showed up that then we're carrying the burden for. And as much as it was somewhat painful to know that I was holding all of that, or that was there, I also then felt this deep connection to my history and to my ancestors that I didn't have before. And I thought that was really powerful as well. So super exciting to have that connection.
When you heal yourself, you actually help to heal your ancestors and vice versa. But I do feel like something like family constellations, where you could heal the subconscious holes, could really help to heal it. I mean, he hit it from as many different angles as you can. That's my advice.
Yeah. Well, I love the connection with the body. And I, in my professional career, in addition to doing podcasts, I work in an organization that brings mindfulness to schools. And we talk a lot about the somatic element. And it's often what we cut off, right? And I'm one of those people. I'm so head-centered, which is why I wrote a book about not being head-centered, of course, because that's what I need to learn. That I can have bruises, sustained bruises. I actually have a really hurt eye right now. I have no idea how I got it.
You have a high pain tolerance. I could see that about you.
Absolutely. And I don't even notice, but I'm so disconnected during the day, even of just traumas that can happen to my body, that they happen anyway. But then learning to start to listen to your body more and to start to get some of those clues. So I'm wondering if you can give us any sense of like, what are some modalities for doing that, or how can we start to build a better connection there?
Well, first of all, we all have a really good reason for disconnecting from our body. It's a defense mechanism that almost all of us to some degree developed when we were young, when we were in situations that felt unsafe, such as mom and dad fighting or being all alone. We literally left our body in order to not feel the pain. That's the reason why that happens. Right now, and I actually want to just say this point and really underline it, that we need to heal these things within ourselves, because it affects everything. We're like the collective consciousness. Everything affects everybody else. And also it affects all of the generations downstream, whether you put your life force energy into birthing a child or into birthing a project or anything else. We must heal, like wherever state of emotional hardship we are in, or health, affects everybody. We're like this interconnected web. It's really, really super powerful. So right now there's certain like syndromes or diagnoses going on that I actually don't see in our child generation as much, like around effort and some of the things that we're talking about we have to do it all of ourselves. And that's why, you know, women are getting thyroid issues and, you know, like it kind of frustrates me. They're going to doctors and they're getting surgeries that, you know, if they just actually heal these things within inside themselves, they don't have to go that medical route. But it's hard. It's hard to break your pattern and to enough to heal it in your lifetime. Wait, what was your question?
No, that was great. The question was, you know, we live separate from our bodies so much. What are some ways to start to learn to listen to it? Yeah.
I love to go on different tangents. It's my second chakra gets so open. I open one door. This is how I do readings. I open one door and then there's another door and another door. Okay.
Oh, cool.
Well, my favorite answer, and I'm a little bit biased being a practitioner, is Feldenkrais. So there's two ways to do it. One, you do a hands-on session on a Feldenkrais bodywork table. The other is you could actually attend a class. And a class is where you lay down on the floor and the instructor says, okay, you know, walks you through very, first it's a body awareness, tuning into how your body and making contact with the ground. And then very gentle, subtle movements that help you to reorganize your entire nervous system. And then at the end, they're like 45-minute long lessons. When you stand up and walk around the room, then you'll be so much more aligned and tall and your breath will be more free. I actually have quite a few lessons I recorded as well. And I host a retreat. Actually, both in my 5-month intuitive program, there'll be a lot of the somatics, and I have a 2-3 day retreats I host. Yoga, sound healing, and Feldenkrais. But just for you out there listening, any kind of like, well, yoga, any kind of thing that connects you into your body. It literally, it's as simple as feel your 2 sit bones on your chair. This is back to my other job when I worked ergonomics. I would go into offices and I would help them to reset up their ergonomic, their office, their computer setup. But it all starts with mindfulness breaks. Like, you know, you could be at the computer, you can have the best ergo setup and you're working away 2 hours, you don't even stop to breathe. And so it's literally just coming back to your breath, feeling the earth underneath your feet, feeling your 2 sit bones, and maybe you could rock a little to the right, a little to the left, a little to the right, a little to the left, and then come to a place that feels balanced. Feel the low back support touching your back and feel your breath. And notice where your shoulders are in space. Are they up here? And if so, just a really brief exercise is as you inhale, allow your shoulders to rise up towards your ears. And as you exhale, let them drop down slowly, slowly, slowly. Just notice how much they dropped. And let's do that one more time. Inhale, let your shoulders gently rise up nice and smooth. Make sure it's not jerky. Exhale, let them completely relax all the way down. And you're welcome to do that one more time if you would like. And fully exhale. And then just ask yourself, where am I? Like, where does your mind go to answer that question? Where are you? Does your mind go to where's your mind? Or does your mind go to where's your body? And see if you could bring your mind back into your body and really just kind of feel every part of your body that's touching something. Just feel the touch of the edge of the chair, touch of the air against your skin. And this is, you could say to yourself, this is me. This is my capsule that holds me. This is my physical body. And it's crucial for manifestation for my physical body and my spiritual body to be hand in hand. It's crucial for them to be aligned. And I promise you, I do readings, energy readings, I do look at where they are, how aligned they are. And sometimes I do some work to bring them together. But when they're together, then you're aligned, your soul's complete, you're taller, you're more put together, and you're in your truth. So that you'll be walking in the truth in your career, you'll be walking in the truth in all your relationships, and you'll be walking in the truth with your communication. So you don't have to effort or try or explain or defend. When you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. Notice the peripheral field around you, not just what's here, but the periphery. And that's one way, if you're an office worker, to just slow it down, take a moment. And I used to tell people when I did that, is set your alarm for every hour. And the first time your alarm goes off, take a 3-minute mindfulness break, kind of going through what I just talked you through. Mm-hmm. And then the second hour, do a stretch break, which we're not going to get into today, and keep alternating that throughout the day. You must be mindful of your physical body, mindful of your state. Are you here? Mindful of where you are. And you must move also throughout the day in order to avoid injury.
Yeah. Oh, that was so beautiful, Shara. Thank you so much. That was, that was really profound. It was such a great question. Where are you? Because I went immediately to my head, because I checked in where my mind was. And I actually often even notice in pictures of myself, I'm leaning forward. So that head forward that is such a big thing for me. I'm so stuck in my head so much of the time. So I appreciate that reminder around that and around what we can learn from our body. I've been looking into and getting excited about, and I'm wondering what your opinion is on, there's more and more research that we actually have neurons in our chest and in our guts that are giving us information. And I don't know if you've heard of that research. So I try as much as I can. I'm like, okay, like if something happens and I can, let me notice the somatic response. So am I feeling open or closed? And maybe we'll take a break, because I know you have a baby I can hear.
I just want to say something really briefly to that, like 85% of your neurons are in your gut. Literally, your gut is your second brain. So anytime something emotional is going on, your gut responds. That's why, another diagnosis of this generation is all the gut stuff going on, the incontinence and the irritable bowel, all that stuff. And it's all emotional. You need to heal it from the emotional level. I mean, if it's chronic, you do the medical stuff. And then briefly, you're saying you're very forward. I'm guessing about 70% of the world is very forward because we're reaching for life. Now, there are some people that are back and they're more bring it to me, maybe passive, maybe, that kind of vibration. So you absolutely want to be centered. And this is also true, because I work a lot with people finding love, that if your energy's here, and that's where I was leaning in when I was looking for love, I was on all the dating sites and chasing after every guy at every bar that was hot, then I learned, wait, I just need to be here in my balance, doing my thing, my purpose. And then as soon as a woman is balanced in her truth and her power, a man will come find her.
Yeah, I need that for my personal life too. So thank you for that.
Or the same sex, whatever.
No, you're right there. That's super helpful. Just that idea of the striving and how that doesn't necessarily bring us forward for anything. I have a few more questions for you. Do you need a break real quick, or should we keep going? I just want to check on you.
I think I'm okay.
Okay. I know that you have a daughter at home, and so I just want to make sure we're attentive to that. So that gut thing, that's a big thing for me of learning how to connect the head to the body in a different way. And what I really appreciate about you, and maybe my last question or discussion we can have is how did you start getting into, what was the leap to start going from what is a much more traditional practice one, like occupational therapy to the psychic world. Cause it's a jump. And I made a similar one myself from a very traditional field to one where spirituality is a really core part of who I am. And so I'm just curious from your vantage point, how did you get there?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. I think it basically found me. So I have been an occupational therapist since the age of 21, 22, basically. So my entire life. And I loved that profession. Like I had so much fulfillment with helping people in that capacity. I wasn't looking to ever change that career. It was more so that I was just unhappy with myself. I always felt like everybody else was better than me. And I compared myself so much to other people. And I felt so empty and so isolated and so alone and so lacking connection. And also, as I made mention, I never had a boyfriend before the age of 40. And so, something was, I was raised to think my whole life was about work and career, like if you're good at your job, that's what else do you need? And then as I entered like my mid 30s, I was like, wait a second, there's something I missed. There's like some skills I seem to have not gotten along the life and along my life trajectory that other people have. And I didn't know how to fill that empty gap. Like maybe I did some psychology work and I just, going to talk to people is nice, but it still didn't bring me more friends or more community or more sense of purpose. And so what I did is I did like I started like in my mid 20s doing transpersonal work, but really in my 30s, I was just going into doing I lived in a community for 6 years where we worked on communication and relationships. That's why I specialize in that. And I lived a year at the Buddhist Zen Center and did a whole bunch of self-development stuff. And then when I was 40, it hit me like, if you are so isolated and alone and unhappy, and you need to do something more, that like something's just still missing. And I had a Reiki friend who's now my best friend, and she kind of guided me. She's like, you're super intuitive, Shara. You got to go enter into a psychic school that's Psychic Horizons in San Francisco. And I did. And I entered into the clairvoyant training, and it was a 4-year training. My first year was all like crying and clearing out all the pain. And then by the second year, I started to see pictures. And I never entered into the training. And I also did several years of coaching trainings. And I never did any one of those trainings for career. I didn't even think about doing it for a career. I just did it because I wanted to heal myself. And then by the second year, people started to come to me for readings a lot. And after about my 100th love reading on a woman trying to find love, I literally cleared the last of my blocks on finding love. And I was doing this reading. And then after we do a reading, we look at our match because it's a law of attraction. Whatever is going on in you, there's something within me too. And I was about to heal my match, but there was like nothing to heal. And then all of a sudden I saw this man's energy field just come into my aura. It was like a shadow in my aura, and it came really close, and it gave me the chills. And I was like, what was that? And that's about the time I met my husband, actually.
Oh, wow.
So, but I didn't recognize my husband because I wasn't into him. He pursued me for months. And then I was like, well, okay. And now I realize he's exactly everything I've ever wanted in my entire life. He's the most beautiful man in my dreams. But anyways, yeah, we have a good love story right now. So then I just was like, oh my God, this is the most powerful work. And so for a while I was doing both the OT and that, but my OT job actually told me they didn't even need me after I went on maternity leave. And then I was like, you know what? It's like all the universe is pointing me in this direction. And I just have so much joy with teaching and helping people. And I want to be more accessible to more people. So like there's this energy moving through me that's like, just go out there and do it. The universe. What
I love about your story, and it's like maybe a good one to start to wrap up on, is when you look back at your life, all those different pieces fit together, right? And so when I hear you talking about your life, number one, you talk about the isolation you experienced when you were younger, and then you had a career, and I started my career at 21 too. So then you had this career that you love and you're dedicated to, that is still here. And I think that's part of what I think people will miss, is that like, actually your occupational therapy career is absolutely still a part of what you do now, but you've made it different. So you've kind of added an and to that. Yes. And that as you stayed open to your life and the messages that were coming up, how that started to shift and change how you showed up. And even, losing your job at, or being told that you didn't need to come back after maternity leave, and then that opening you up to so much more. Such a beautiful story of how you're just continuing to open and unfold. And Yeah, that's such a beautiful reminder. It's always easier when it's not you looking at your own life too, but I can see that trajectory and it's just beautiful.
Thank you.
Do you maybe want to tell folks how they can work with you or connect with you more?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you my website. The easiest thing is my website is sharaogin.com. I'll spell that for you. It's SHARAOGIN.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go to sharaogin.com/healings live, that's with an S, healings live, you'll see the schedule of my online healings that I'm going to do every Friday at noon. So I basically do a free group healing and a free one-on-one healing. And eventually the schedule might change. So just check there for the schedule. On my website, I'll also post my intuitive coaching program. And then also on sharaogin.com/retreats, you'll see the information for my retreats. And then I also work with people one-on-one. And so I offer free 30-minute consultations. So you'll find that on my website as well.
Oh, you have so much to offer. And I'm just so glad that you took the time today to talk, Shara. It's really exciting to hear what you're doing. And thank you so much for your time and energy today. And it was so great to talk to you.
Yeah, you're so
I want to have you back
too. Yeah, you're so multi-talented too. I'm so excited to get to know you.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing you at one of our luncheons soon too, so I can give you a hug in person.
That sounds good. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Shara.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for joining us today on this show, on the Your Three Eyes show. It was such a great talk with Shara that we didn't actually even take commercial breaks. We were prepared for them because she had a young daughter and we didn't need to. And I'm so glad that we didn't, because it was such a beautiful conversation and I'm so grateful for her time. I just want to give you a few hints about stuff that's coming up and reminders about things for us. The first is that if you go to the Your Three Eyes website, that's www.your3eyes.com. Lots of information on things that are coming up for us. One is that we continue to hold the needs and the experiences of people at the border, the migrants, and the way they're being separated from one another and grossly mistreated at the border, actually both sides of the border, the United States-Mexico border. We're holding them in our hearts. And there's also some information on actions you can take if you want to donate money. The best way to address is to donate money to legal aid for migrants that are coming to the United States. Also, just to learn more about the facts and the details there. So I invite you to do that. A link for that's on our website. There's also free downloads there, access to blog posts and some other freebies, books that I find interesting and exciting. Links to all of the past shows that we've had on both this show, Your Three Eyes, as well as the other podcast I do called The Awakening Educator. So I invite you to do that. I also have a course coming up soon called the Beliefs Lab. So we talked a lot about beliefs today. And in my course, the Beliefs Lab, we learn about how to start to unpack some of those, how to uncover them. So you can start to see them and start to work with them and shift them so they don't impact you the way that they do currently, or to at least use your beliefs in service of your future goals rather than have them working against you without you even knowing about it. Always invite people to buy my book. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and any other place where you can buy a book. It's called An Educator's Guide for Using Your Three Eyes. I happen to have a copy here, so if you're looking live, that's what the cover looks like. It's geared towards educators, but absolutely the content in there works for almost anyone, anywhere. And finally, I do coaching as well, and I am offering a sale right now where you get a free energy leadership coaching, and then you get three sessions for the cost of 3. So you get energy leadership report and coaching for the cost of 3. So please check out all those things. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.